Welcome to this afternoon's program, Preparing for College When Mental Health is a Concern. This is part of No Shame on You's new-ish monthly Feed Your Mind virtual lunchtime series. No Shame on You was founded in November 2014 and is dedicated to eliminating the stigma associated with mental health conditions so that people who need help will seek it. Family members and friends will know how to provide proper support and to save lives. No Shame on You achieves its mission through lots of incredible programming, educational presentations, trainings, workshops, daily online tools and resources, blog, podcasts, and more. Since the pandemic, we've offered hundreds and hundreds of free virtual programs, and through our 125,000 social media following, we share a vast array of resources and information. And I'll share all that, our website in the chat. Want to thank our generous funders, including JUF, Jewish Women's Foundation, Cram Family Philanthropies, and many more. Today's program is actually sponsored by a wonderful partner, Rogers Behavioral Health. Rogers is a nationally recognized nonprofit provider of mental health and addiction services. Rogers offers evidence-based treatment for adults, children, and adolescents with depression and other mood disorders, eating disorders, addiction, OCD, and anxiety disorders, trauma, and PTSD. In addition, one moment, I'm going to let some people in. In addition to growing a network of regional locations in Chicago, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Washington, Rogers operates 3 inpatient behavioral health hospitals, 17 residential programs, and 8 outpatient centers in Wisconsin. For more information, learn about Rogers at rogersbh.org, and I'll put that in the chat too. Now for a bit of housekeeping. Keep your sound on mute to avoid feedback unless you're talking. Bonnie's going to be taking questions during the session. You can either chat privately with me. I should be listed as Wendy No Shame on You. If not, I'll change that as soon as I'm done. I'll be moderating the Q&A at the end of the program. I am the program director for No Shame on You. And now I want to quickly introduce Bonnie Lane, the incredible Bonnie Lane of the Family Support Services. She runs the Family Support Services, but also is one of No Shame on You's really devoted and dedicated board members. Bonnie is a graduate from National Louis University with a master's degree with honors in both developmental and counseling psychology. She's also a certified mediator and certified in domestic violence counseling. Bonnie has had an incredibly robust career in the nonprofit sector. And for more than 2 decades, Bonnie has worked privately with families dealing with mental health issues. She's counseled individuals and families as they successfully navigate the maze of care and resources available for young and older adults. Helping families in times of crisis is her mission and her passion, and that's why we love her. So welcome, Bonnie. Thank you for being here with us today.
Wow, I'm blushing. Thank you so much for that lovely intro. And thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to present a topic that is so very, very important to families and parents who are getting their rising freshmen emotionally, physically, and academically ready for the next step in their educational journey. Right now, it's important for you to realize that your children's experience will be different than every other child's experience. So when we begin thinking about college or a post-secondary career or gap year or volunteering, or however we're looking at the next level of care, it's going to be what your children want, what they need, and how to best support that. We're here to talk about your rising freshman's challenges. You search for an appropriate educational or vocational or experiential experience as they graduate from high school and they begin their journey. We were going to discuss things like why. Why should they pick college? Why should they not pick college? When is the appropriate time for your kid to decide to go off to college or go to a school that is not in the same community that you're living in, or go to a four-year university, or take a gap year, where, regardless of where their friends are going, their decision is very, very individual. And we need to support and encourage them to find what is the most and best alternative for them, and the alternatives that are available. Going to a four-year college, going to a community college, going to a school in town, going to a school far away, working, volunteering, traveling, or mixing, doing one, two, or three of the things that we've just mentioned, because they all will make for a healthy and exciting experience for your rising freshmen. Most of you here will have juniors or seniors in high school. And so if you have questions, you can either put them in the chat, or if you're showing me your face, feel free to raise your hand. It's perfectly fine, and I will stop to take questions, because I know that your journey is individual and I want to meet the needs and the questions that you're coming with. When we're looking at going to a school, it's very important that we take a collaborative approach, and the collaboration begins in high school or secondary school, yeshiva or public high school, wherever your children are matriculating. We start out by looking at what resources and what accommodations they received or needed at high school. What that means is, if your kid has an IEP or another learning assistance, if they're working with the social worker, if they're working with the psychologist, if they're working on socialization or executive functioning, they will need that when they go off to college. And this group of kids, just like I talked last year when I was doing this presentation, had a very unique beginning. They started out in COVID. Starting out during COVID means that they weren't in school with classmates and you were there all the time. So when we're measuring your child's independence and autonomy, we have to make sure and figure out, how much did we assist? How much prompting was necessary? How independent of a learner were they? How responsible were they academically? And that's one of the main things that we have to think about, but definitely not the only one. We will use this collaborative approach continually. The team is the team leader, your child, and then there are the cheerleaders. The cheerleaders are the parents, the social workers, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, the accommodations department, and people at the university or college or community college that your kid chooses to attend. It's really important that everyone is involved and that releases are signed, and I'll get more into them, into the different kinds of releases that I would like you to think about when you are choosing this decision. We have to look at what challenges our children faced in high school before we discuss what challenges they will be facing in college. Because everything that they face, every challenge that was a hurdle for them, needs to be addressed in college plus more. So did they have academic challenges? Did they have social challenges? Did they have organizational challenges? Did they have personal ADLs, activities of daily living challenges, which includes chores and laundry and getting up on time and making their lunches and sleeping and eating properly? If these were challenges in high school, they will be there in college, and we need to make sure that our children are prepared to accept those independently. College challenges will be all of those, plus the social challenge of meeting new people, trying to build a social circle. If your child struggles with social anxiety or impulsivity, we need to make sure that they're ready to face this next step of their lives with strength and with knowledge and with a lot of support. Things are going to be coming at them that they may not be ready to handle. And these are conversations you should have. If your children are looking at saying, well, I want to go to college because I want to live far away from home, or I want to go to college because I want to participate in Greek life, or I want to go to college because I want freedom from my parents. These are important things, but they're things that can be accomplished at a local university if you believe your child is not ready. I was asked at the last presentation I gave, my child doesn't want to go away to school. How do I convince them? My answer is going to be brought up multiple times. Don't convince them. There is nothing wrong with your child staying home for college, going to a community college, taking a gap year and working or volunteering or traveling. Not everyone is ready at the same time. And I don't care what their classmates or their friends are doing. We are only focused on building success for your student, not for anybody else's. I have too many clients who have gone off to college and come home after the first semester or the first year because they just weren't ready to accept the different challenges that appear when you are in a college environment. There's going to be a lot of things that are extraneous and there's stimulation, and they're not necessarily things that your kids can fight. There's going to be more access to substances, marijuana and alcohol. Have conversations with your kids. This is very tempting. They're experiencing freedom, some of them for the first time. Even if you say, well, my kid has gone to camp. They've gone to camp for 9 years. Camp is with a counselor and it's not the same thing. This is different. There is total independence to make decisions, be they good or bad. And we need to prepare our children to make good decisions for themselves. If your child is seeing a therapist, an executive functioning coach, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a school social worker, having them in socialization groups, if they're in guided study, whatever services your child is receiving in high school, remember they will need them in college. And we don't start looking for them once they get to school. We start looking for them months in advance, because a lot of these things, like a therapist, a psychiatrist, a coach, or a counselor, are therapeutic relationships. And we need to know that this relationship is one that they can handle, so that they feel confident and safe in talking with. So you may have to interview some people and find someone that's available that's a good fit. Most colleges and universities do have psychologists and therapists on staff. Beware. These are people that are usually graduate students in the school. There's probably one supervisor. If you're lucky enough to get them, that's great. But if you're not, your child could have to tell their same story over and over again as their treating professional transitions in and out of being their therapist. And they'll need a new therapist or a new psychologist, and they'll have to tell their story again. And I know that young people really do not enjoy having to retell their story. And when they get frustrated enough, they just pull away from services. That gets to releases. Releases are very, very important for us to have. We need to have signed releases from everyone at the school. So if your child does decompensate academically, socially, or emotionally, the parents are able to get notification. Now, what we're normally thinking about is you get a release from the therapist, you get a release from the psychologist. You need to get a release from the university too, because your only rights with your child away at school is to pay the bill. Once they're over 18, they have no obligation to communicate with you if your child stops attending class, if your child is not turning in assignments, if your child is not present at all, if they come unprepared. But if you have releases signed with the accommodations department and with the university, you will be there. You will be able to get information when you need it. It's very, very important to assure success or try to assure success. Because one thing we don't want is your child to feel unsupported when they're struggling. And the only way we can accommodate them and support them is with knowledge. We have to talk also about if your child goes away to school, you have to look at dorm life. There's different housing opportunities available wherever your kid goes to school. If they go to school in the city, they can choose to live in a dorm or choose to live at home for a while. Even community colleges now have dorm opportunities, which is a great testing ground to see if your child is able to do it, if they can live up to all the challenges that will happen with their anxiety or their depression or their executive functioning issues or their ADHD. It's good to let them have a trial balloon at a community college or a local university where they can live at home or live on the campus, knowing that you are right there and you can come. And they can maintain the relationships with their current providers. There's a lot to be said for staying in the city and being able to have continuity of care with your current treating professionals, your counselor, your social worker, your psychiatrist. During COVID, we lived in a bubble. We were able to see our psychiatrists wherever we were living, but that permit has been removed. No longer can most psychiatrists practice across state lines, and a lot of therapists can't either. So you have to make sure that your treating professional can, and if they can't, that we find the right person. But if they can, that's a great advantage. The other things we have to talk about are the non-academic requirements of them. Dorm life is not just socialization. It's waking up on time. It's doing their homework on time or advocating for themselves that they need more support and resources from the accommodations department so that they can do their homework, doing laundry, getting enough rest, eating well. These are things that will all directly impact their ability to be successful in college, which means these are all independent skills they need to have mastered before they go to college. Now, sure, kids are going to learn things and they're going to slip up. But when our kids go in with mental health issues, we want to make sure that we bolster them with as much support as possible so that when things do start to get quivery, we can catch them. It's really important. It will happen. Nothing will go smoothly. That's my mantra. Nothing will go smoothly, but it will be fine in the end if we've surrounded our kids in support and love. That's the most important thing. So we support them with as many things that we can. Can a child stay home from college and still have balance in their life? Can it be achieved? We look at balance as having a work life and a play life and downtime. This is how we all need to live. Can your child create balance when they're away from home? And would it be better if they learned how to balance staying at home? I'm not saying that all kids need to stay at home, not at all. A majority of students will do very, very well going away to school, but you know your own students, you know what challenges they've experienced in the last few years so that you can determine if they can move on to an away from home school. So let's say, what can we do to promote balance if they are home? They're taking their classes, they can do creative outlets, social outlets, join clubs. There are Hillels and social activities and lots of volunteer opportunities where they can build a very full life still living in the city of Chicago or the suburbs and participating in their academic so that they can still either live at home or in a dorm close to home. You have to think about what they have been able to accomplish independently. Are they truly independent at home? Are they getting up on time for school? Are they getting up on time with enough time to have breakfast or a cup of coffee or make their lunch, if these are things that are required of them? Are you engaging with their teachers now? Are you looking online, because everything's online? Are you looking online to see what all their homework is and prompting them to do it? Or do you not have to? When their grades come back and they're doing fine, or when they need help, do they ask for help? If you find that you're asking for help and they're not, that's something to take very seriously before you have an expectation that they can live independently. So are you engaged with the teachers now? Are you calling the teachers and saying, how is my child doing? Is their homework assigned? Have they been turning it in on time? Can we have extra time? Can we have extra help? Or are they doing that? Those are really important questions to ask before we pack those bags. Does your child struggle with anxiety, depression, or the need for frequent mental health days? This is not unusual, but we need to know if your child is struggling with anxiety, social anxiety, depression, the need for mental health days, OCD, ADHD, or executive functioning issues. These things will follow them. How are they independently addressing these issues, or are you still in charge? If you're still in charge, think about why. Can you start now giving more responsibility over to your student and say, if you're not caught up, make sure you have your school's accommodation department's number. If you're supposed to be in guided study, are you attending? We want to give things over to them. Make your own lunch, do your own laundry. These are things that are going to be expected of them when they go away. You will not be there when they haven't done laundry in 3 weeks and they're wearing the same dirty socks. Now, you may say, oh, my kids will be just fine wearing the same dirty socks, but will they? So giving them adult independent responsibilities while still at home is a really good way to test if they're ready to go away. What supports can travel? We were talking about a social worker or a psychologist that does have the ability to still treat them when they're beyond state lines. You need to check. You need to check how your insurance will handle seeing somebody that's in another state. So you've got a lot of work to do to make sure that your child's services are all in place and that they can have it. And you work with them as a team and you talk to your students and you see, what does college like look to them? What do they need? What are they looking for? I heard a story once years ago that somebody took their kids on college tours, that whole 8-month thing where you spend every weekend driving to another college. And after a few months, the child came home and they said, you know what? I like Mizzou, just listing a school. And the parent said, why did you like Mizzou? And she said, well, everybody was wearing the same kind of shoes I wear. So I think I'll fit in there. Now, to parents, that sounds like a silly answer, but it's not. It means she felt like she would fit in with the milieu, with the students that attend that school. That's really important. That's the way she's perceiving it, is in the shoes, but she's actually looking at the students and saying, could I be one of these students? Could I find a home here? Because it's a home for hopefully no more than 4 years. But it is a home, and we want our kids to feel comfortable at the schools that they choose. How does your kids' anxiety appear? Do they shut down? Do they fidget with their hair? Do they do things that are more serious than that? Do they have OCD tendencies? Do they ruminate over perceived indiscretions, or somebody was mean to them? Do they frequently come home and say, people were mean to me and I have no friends, even though they do? We have to see how their anxiety presents now to know how it can present on a larger scale and how we can be prepared to deal with that. I need a drink, sorry, talking too much. And not that I hate talking, I love it. Are they prepared to use their resources when anxiety, depression, or ADHD symptoms become more exacerbated? Do they have the insight and the ability to advocate for themselves? The two most important skills they need to go away to school with a mental health challenge. Do they have insight, and can they advocate for themselves? These are things you're going to need to know, in addition to, can they feed themselves and do laundry and get up on time and do their homework without prompting and get their assignments in on time and work in teams or be in a classroom with 100 students. You know, they may be used to going to a school where there's 12 or 15 people in a classroom. They go to college and now a lecture center could have 50 or 100 students and a professor might not know your name. So it's not going to be the personalized attention that they're used to. If they're going to a private school, a day school, a suburban school, they're going to have a lot more independence expected of them without the support from the school unless we put it in. There are departments that will give them accommodations, but we need to come in prepared with any IEP or any other documentation from high school that our students have had in the past so that they can be put in place. And the schools want these soon. They don't want them on the first day of school, so they have no time to set up tutoring or support. They want them a month in advance. When you accept your college, the first thing you do is reach the accommodation department. And actually, I'd say you reach out to the accommodation department before you choose a college to make sure that they have the services that you believe your student will need for success. And that's the bottom line with all of this, is it's their success, it's their experience, and we are there to bolster them up. We are the cheerleaders, they are the team leader. We make sure that this team leader is going to have the experience that they've envisioned for college, not the one you missed out on, not the one you wish they could have, not the one you wish you did have. It's got nothing to do with it. Not because that's where their neighbors or their friends are going to school. It's a very individual decision. You know, it's based on what they want to study and what their interests are and maybe what climate they want to be in. That's not a bad reason to choose a school. If your kid has been complaining about winters and they have that disease that turns your fingers blue, maybe it's not a bad idea to look where they can go to school where it doesn't get below 65. That might be a good way for them to learn. So we have to look at all different opportunities that are available. I'm going to open up the floor now if anybody has any questions. Did anybody ask any questions?
We sure do. We have some questions.
Okay, but let's field some questions.
Okay, so one question is, and they're continuing to come, so we're going to do our best to get all of it. One question is say my child's doing okay, and then in college, as a parent, we're getting concerned that there might be like something brewing, or a crisis pending or something like that. Who's the best person to immediately reach out to while they're on campus?
Other than me? No. Actually, hopefully you have, if they've never been in therapy before, they've never been in counseling before, I would call the counseling department. And with your child, though, because this is all on them, you have to make sure that they're willing, that they will seek help and go see a social worker. If they refuse to see a social worker, a counselor, or a psychiatrist, and you're concerned that a crisis is brewing, you need to go and check on them in person. You need to see what's going on. And if you need to walk them over to the social work department and have them sign up. Now, let's say you get there and there's no social work or counseling appointment available for 3 months. What do? You can contact a local NAMI. You can look in the yellow pages for a private therapist or psychiatrist. And usually the school has a list of therapists and psychologists that are available in the community that do take runovers if there's too many kids seeking services. And right now, a high percentage of college students are accessing mental health services. So if they can't do it on their own, you need to go and do a personal check-in.
So I'm going to piggyback on that question. Say that the child chose to go to a school that is not drivable, and you're really feeling as a parent there's something going on right then, and they're not getting themselves to a counseling center. Could you suggest that they go to the R, could I call the RA's office?
Well,
Could I
if you have a
RAs do
release.
checks like that?
So the RA is something that I usually recommend families get a release for. They tell the kid that I want the RA to be able to call me if you're not doing well, if you're not leaving your room. And so you work an arrangement out with the RA that the RA will notice if your child is not leaving, and they have your home phone number or your cell number, and they call you. The RA is not going to be able to get your kid services unless it's a 911 call. The RA is not going to go in and make an appointment for your child. The RA can only call you.
Mhm.
So the RA can sit and
So
talk
set that
to
up
the
in
child.
advance. Set that up in advance is also what I'm
Oh,
hearing. Like be
yes,
planful.
absolutely. You set up a relationship in advance with the RA. Now, realistically, hopefully the RA will be there for an entire year. Sometimes they're only there for a semester for one reason or another. They're a grad student. They've gone to take an internship. That means that second semester, you need to meet the new RA and make sure that you develop that relationship also. But I will tell you, if you have decided that your child can go away to school with a mental health issue and you've sent them to California, you may need to fly to California.
Mhm.
I mean, you're making that decision at the same time as you're choosing a school. And if you're concerned that you won't have access when you're needed, look at Michigan, look at Missouri, look at Illinois, look at Wisconsin, look at Indiana, where you can go. There are great schools all over where they get that same experience and you have easier access to them.
Okay. Great advice, Bonnie. Thank you. We have a comment. We have a son who we're thinking about trade school as a possibility for him next year. We have no clue how to look into this. That was just more of a comment, but if you have a thought about that.
Oh my God, I love
Um,
you already. I'm so glad. I wish more and more parents would consider trade school. Trade school is wonderful. Your local community colleges do have trade school options. They have HVAC and they have things like that, IT, computer security, a lot of those are available. Otherwise, contact, and this is going to sound funny, your local electrician and plumbers unions. They can guide you to where to go. Usually you will need to do some kind of an ombudsman program with them anyway. If your child has an interest in working with his hands, call the plumbers union, call the electricians union, see how he can get in it and get mentored and trained. Absolutely. Also,
okay. You know it all, Bonnie. You know it all.
I am super excited for any parent that is looking at it. And I'll tell you, we all need tradesmen, and not everybody is cut out for 4 years of college. But there are a lot of trade opportunities available at the local community college. And keep in mind, there's also CNA you can get at the local community college and go right to work. There are teachers aid at the community college. That's 2 years. You go right to work. Let's say your kid doesn't know what they want to do. I consider college a buffet. Taste everything. And if they're not ready to walk up to the buffet, give them a smaller buffet at a community college where they can test out or save you money and take their gen ed classes where you're not paying $40,000 a year. Not a bad decision either.
I like that. I like that. The possibility, there are a lot of possibilities, and sometimes we get stuck in these boxes, but there's so much potential is what I'm hearing and what you're encouraging.
And there's no reasonable expectation that an 18-year-old knows what they want to do when they grow up.
Of course. Of course.
So we expect them to choose a major. They can't even choose their shoes half the time. So let's be realistic. And don't let them walk in with, I am going to be a neurophysicist, unless like they were a baby neurophysicist in high school. So let them go in and encourage them to take all different subject matters. It's so important.
Okay,
Try
so Bonnie,
things.
on this same question, the second part of it is the senior does not currently have an IEP, but the parent feels potentially should for college. Is it too late? Did we miss the boat? He just turned 18. What are you thinking? Is it too late to get an IEP at this age?
There are educational advocates, and if somebody wants to contact me, I'm happy to share information about some educational advocates. If they don't have an IEP and they're 18 years old, it usually means the school or the parents didn't think they needed one. It depends on what they need support in. Sometimes we could put these supports in without an IEP. It depends on what we're looking at as an issue. If it's a mental health issue, it's different than a special ed issue. Learning disabilities are usually what's covered in an IEP. So if they need accommodations academically, it's different than the accommodations they'll need for mental health. I have worked with school for both, but I primarily work with schools for mental health accommodations, and I'll give you an example. I had a student that went to community college and was taking Comp 1, the first composition class that everybody takes. And one of the components that was a requirement was public speaking. They had to give a speech in front of the class, but they suffered from anxiety. They could not do it. I made an appointment with the accommodations department and the school's students counselor. We went in together because I don't do anything without the student. We went in together and we talked to the counselor, the guidance counselor, about why this was not something that this child thought they could be successful at. Not that they didn't know the material, not that they couldn't write a speech, but that they couldn't speak in front of 50 people. That just wasn't going to happen. So we arranged that the student did the public speaking requirement in the guidance counselor's office with the guidance counselor present and a parent if they chose, and the teacher. They were still doing a public speaking. They were still talking in front of a smaller group of people, and they were able to accomplish the requirement and successfully complete the class.
Excellent. Excellent. Well done. There's a second part of before we leave, we're not too far away from the trade school option is that I thought was interesting. What is your advice if a student might be better, a teen might be better for trade school, but they're feeling ashamed, that they can't do the 4-year college, track it? Just what is your advice
Well, there's different ways to look at it. First of all, shame comes from the community. People aren't born feeling ashamed. So we need as parents to encourage and support and celebrate whatever our choices our children make. So we have to keep motivating them and telling them how valuable their decision is and how we respect it and know that it's a great road to success. If they're ashamed because they're not going away, there are lots of universities that have community colleges on the campus or adjacent to the campus where they could take trade-related coursework and still be able to be with their friends. So there are ways of working that out, finding a trade program in the community where they want to go to college, but they don't feel they want to go to academic college. But most importantly, celebrate and support their choices and don't let them be ashamed. If they're feeling insecure about that decision, the more we support it, the more we tell, siblings and cousins and friends, this is their goal. Isn't that awesome? Then people will join in and also understand that this is a very viable alternative and one that people ignore. Not everybody wants to be in school till they're 22, learning a subject matter that they have no interest in doing, only to end up going back for trade. I do know someone that went to 4-year school. They graduated with an education degree. They taught for 1 year, they were miserable, and they're today a very happy and successful electrician.
That's great. Which is, we can't survive without electricians, which is so important for people,
Totally. I don't know how to do anything. I need phone numbers. So I need the next generation to become electricians and plumbers and heating and air conditioning people. We need them all, and they're valuable, and they have a skill that most of us have no idea about, and it's hard.
Very complicated. We've had a couple questions about this, so I'm going to ask this one next. It came through a couple different ways. Bonnie, what are your thoughts on gap year programs? One, and two, gap year programs before they start four-year college or trade school, or versus in the middle, taking a break. So what are your thoughts?
Okay, so first let's talk about what a gap year program is, okay?
Yes.
A gap year can be defined in many different ways. It could be going to an alternative educational opportunity where executive functioning is focused on, or mental health and executive functioning is focused on, and they can take some classes from a local school, but most of the time they're living in a dorm with people that are struggling with similar issues and developing independent skills so that they can be successful. But gap year doesn't have to mean school. Gap year can mean traveling, which is very educational. Peace Corps, I'm sorry, I can't think of what I was thinking of, but there's other programs that people can participate in where they're doing community service. AmeriCorps, thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. AmeriCorps, volunteering for local organizations and agencies that need your help, getting a job to see what you actually want to study when you go to college. You know, since we're back to our buffet, taking.
I think you're mentioning a good thing that I want to just point out to everyone is, it sounds like you're saying gap year possibilities are both, they can be away from home, but also they can be local.
They can be totally local. A gap year doesn't mean the kid couldn't go to college. It means the kid has chosen an alternative and they weren't ready right now to go to college, or they've chosen not to go to college yet because they don't know what they want to study or where they want to go. It doesn't mean it's going to be an unproductive year. It can be a very, very productive year of growing emotionally and academically and responsibility wise. They're growing into the people they will be. And I think we're one of the only countries where a gap year isn't built into the curriculum, where kids do something. I mean, if we look at Israel, they have to go to the army before they'd be considered to go to college. So nothing is wrong with selecting what your gap year will look like. And that comes from a discussion with your student about how they want to spend it. Now, if they say they want to spend it laying at home playing video games and watching TV, I'd probably have to encourage them to find something more constructive to do. But if they are interested in doing any service positions, that's wonderful. And we are looking for help in every aspect of our government and in the volunteer and not-for-profit world, looking for people that are willing to devote their time and learn while they're doing it.
Awesome. Okay, so it sounds like a positive, and
I love gap years.
It wasn't in my mindset, so I think it is important. Somebody asked, so I'll ask this for everyone, is this being recorded? It is. We will post it on our YouTube channel, so if anyone needs it, we are here, it will be sent out in a thank you email, and it will be on our YouTube channel. And at the end of the session, Bonnie, we're going to share your information, how people can contact you if they want a private consultation. So I want to talk about that. So we have another question that I think is important here. This person is worrying, the child is struggling with an eating disorder, and the concern is her going off to college and restricting. And is there anything specific that you know of in the college environment that can help support her in college, that would able to help, support her, help monitor a little bit, how us as parents could help, keep tabs on that? What do you know?
So eating disorder is actually a serious mental illness, and it should be addressed before your child goes off to school. You brought up Rogers earlier. They have an eating disorder track. There's a lot of mental health agencies that do have eating disorder programs. It would be advisable for that to be addressed before you send them off to school, because nobody will be monitoring them at the university. Universities are not hospitals, they're not mental health agencies, they're academic. So we have to make sure that they have the support in advance and they have the knowledge. They can continue working with their eating disorder therapist or counselor or psychiatrist after they complete a program or maybe 2 programs to see when they're ready. But that's something that needs to be very seriously addressed because eating disorders sometimes appear in college because of the stress of the competition. And eating disorder is a disorder of control. And when people feel that they don't have control over other aspects of their life, they do have control over what they put into their mouth. And whether it's binging and purging or anorexia, it's really important that this is addressed before they go away to school. Now, if it occurs at school, and it can, and I've had many families where it reared its ugly head once the student was already away at school, it usually is the best advice is to bring them home and work on that issue before they return to college. It doesn't mean they won't return. It just means that they have to work on their health before they can focus on their academics.
And if they struggled in high school but are on a good path now, then
parents should hear by the tone of their kids' voices how things are going.
Mhm.
I mean, we have to trust our judgment and our gut as parents. If they struggled with an eating disorder, but you've seen them eating healthy and appropriately for a length of time, and I would say not less than a year of really being stable with their disorder, then there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to try.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Greek life? Good or bad? What are your
Yes,
thoughts?
good and bad.
Uh-huh.
Good and bad. So Greek life can be wonderful. It's a built-in social network. You have friends, you have activities, you have dances, you have support. And some of the Greeks are really service-oriented, and it's a really good experience. Every university's AEPI is different than every other university's AEPI. So if your kid is interested in Greek life, you know that you're going to be looking at schools that do have an active Greek life for them. But talk to them about what is expected. Hell Week in Rush is exactly what it sounds like. They expect really uncomfortable behaviors from some of our kids, and that's not all Greek life. So, do your homework. Let them talk to other people that were in that frat or sorority in the past. Make sure that they have the same moral compass as the people that they're going to be pledging for. They have that chance to meet different Greek frats and sororities before they pledge, or they can pledge for many and get to meet the people that are in it to make sure that they're not signing up for something that emotionally is unhealthy.
Got it. That's a scary one because you're right. There's good and bad involved with it. This is a specific question, but what do you know? Do you know anything about the merit program at schools like U of I? They seem to have a safety net for executive functioning and study habit issues. Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, and there are a number of schools around the country that do have executive functioning programs, like a school within a school. The good part is the accommodations are available, and you can sign up and you can schedule them as often as you want. It's usually at an additional cost.
That was my next question. Does it cost more? Yes. Okay.
It always costs more. The bad part is your kid with executive functioning issues or anxiety may not attend the way they're supposed to. I had a student at Lynn last year. We had every single thing put in place for accommodations. The only thing we couldn't control is the fact that he never went. The parents spent a lot of money. He would never show up for tutoring. He wouldn't turn in his homework, and he failed out of the semester. He is now with a private executive functioning tutor doing very well at the fall. So
thank you, Bonnie. All right, another question here is, what do you do when your student is a poor test taker? How do you support them, with their, any advice around that?
Okay, so college was great for me because I couldn't do math. Okay, I'm just giving you an example. So I found a way to take math classes where what my responsibility was to write papers. It was in the natural science area, not in math and science. So it was called natural science. And I designed a 2-dimensional universe, like where you bury people and how you fly to vacations. So find classes for them, work with the guidance counselor for classes that maybe either have alternatives to testing. Not all classes in college are going to have tests. Some will, that's for sure. But if you can weigh heavily on the classes that do projects or papers, that might be better for your students, an alternative way to learn. There are also colleges where the student does not take 4 classes at a time. They take 1 in blocks. So they're really, really learning the material very, very well. Northeastern in Massachusetts, I think, has that program. And it's really good for students who have alternative ways of learning. They have learning differences. And it could be testing is not great for them, but there's so much support because of the way the classes are taught that they're highly prepared to be successful. You're muted, Wendy.
Thank you, Bonnie. My office mate, my 4-legged office mate is talking to me over here, so I put it on mute. Well, I just, first off, thank you, Bonnie. This was so helpful. We're going to post this. We're going to share it to everyone who registered. So if people missed it, they will get it, but it also will be on our YouTube channel. So that you can look at it, share it with friends and family who are interested. We want everyone to have access for this. Bonnie, in the chat, I'm going to put oops, I sent it to everybody. I'm going to put a very quick survey in the chat. It helps us make sure that we're hitting the mark, reporting back to our amazing funders, and that we're providing the best programming that we can. So if you have time, take a minute and fill that out for us. And thank you. Bonnie, can you put in the chat your email address or your website where people can contact you for more information?
I'm going to do that right now.
And I'm going to put in.
But it says only to Wendy. How do I do it to everyone?
You click the little
I did. It's only showing.
All right, then I will take care of that. Do not worry. You tell me what it is. Say it out loud and I'll type it in.
My website is www.thefamilysupportservices.com. My direct email is Bonnie Lane, BONNIELANE at thefamilysupportservices.com, and you can email me either way.
Amazing. So that is in the chat.
Excuse me, I'm dealing with that, the crud that's going around.
Yes, you are not alone. We all have that. I'm putting in our website, www.noshameonyou.org. You can check in there for other upcoming programs and information about our organization and resources. We got the survey in there, and I want to thank Rogers Behavioral Health for sponsoring our session. And Bonnie, thank you. I'm feeling better.
Oh, this is my pleasure. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of such an amazing organization.
We are lucky to have you. And we'll just hang out for a few more minutes. If people have, a question, I call it hanging out in our virtual lobby. Since we have till 1 o'clock, we have a few more minutes, but this concludes the formal portion of our program. And we'll see you all again soon. Have a great day, everybody.